World War II is a story of millions of lives, grand battles, and unexpected alliances. Today, we'll talk about the role of the USA in this conflict and how its relationship with the Soviet Union, an ally whose joint efforts changed the course of history, unfolded. We'll share numbers, facts, and little-known details you probably won't find in textbooks. Let's go. When Germany invaded the USSR in 1941, the Soviet economy was on the brink of collapse. That's when the American Lend-Lease program came to the rescue. Starting in March 1941, the USA began supplying allies with equipment, food, and resources. For the USSR, this was a lifeline. On-screen graphics with numbers and examples of equipment. Host, over 4 years of war, the USA sent the Soviet Union aid worth $11.3 billion. That's about $180 billion in today's money. What did these supplies include? 400,000 trucks and jeeps. By the end of the war, 65% of the Red Army's vehicle fleet was American-made. 14,000 airplanes. For example, Bell P-39 Airacobra fighters, flown by the famous ace Alexander Pokrishkin, who shot down 59 enemy aircraft. 13,000 tanks and self-propelled guns, including light Stuarts and medium Shermans. 4.5 million tons of food, canned meat, sugar, flour. Soldiers even joked that this was their second front. 2,000 locomotives and 11,000 rail cars. Without them, Soviet logistics would have ground to a halt. Little-known fact, American Studebaker US-6 trucks became the platform for the legendary Katyusha rocket launchers. And the USSR also received 500,000 kilometers of telephone cable and 2 million pairs of army boots. Small things, but without them, the war would have been harder. But the USA didn't just help with equipment. Their military operations changed the balance of power. The most famous event was the D-Day landings on June 6, 1944. Over 156,000 Allied soldiers landed in France, opening the long-awaited Second Front. This diverted up to 40 German divisions from the Eastern Front. For example, in July 1944, the Wehrmacht transferred the elite Panzer Lehr Division from Ukraine to Normandy, giving Soviet troops a breather. But the Second Front wasn't just Normandy. In 1942 to 1943, the USA and Britain defeated Axis forces in North Africa, destroying 250,000 enemy soldiers in Tunisia. And in the Pacific? The victory at the Battle of Midway in June 1942 stopped Japan. The USSR avoided a two-front war, and the Japanese fleet lost 4 aircraft carriers and 332 planes in one day. This was a turning point that's often overlooked in the context of the Soviet War. And another fact, the USA shared intelligence with the USSR. Thanks to cracking the German Enigma codes, Americans passed on information about German plans for the Battle of Kursk. This helped Soviet command prepare for the largest tank battle in history. Cooperation between the USA and the USSR wasn't just about equipment and battles. Here are some facts you might not know. Joint development. Americans helped adapt aircraft for Soviet needs. The P-39 Airacobra got a 37mm cannon at the USSR's request, perfect against German tanks. Operation Frantic. In 1944, American B-17 bombers were based at airfields in Poltava and Mirgorod, striking Germany and then flying to Italy. This was a unique example of direct interaction. Medical revolution. The USA supplied the USSR with penicillin, about 2 million doses by 1945. This saved thousands of lives from infections. After the war, aid continued. Through the UN, UNRWA, the USA allocated $250 million to the USSR, equivalent to $3.5 billion today. This included medicine, tractors, seeds. By 1950, Soviet industry had grown by 73% compared to pre-war levels, and American aid played a role. Now about relations. The USA and the USSR were allies but not friends. Ideology divided them, but a common enemy, Nazism, forced them to work together. At conferences in Tehran and Yalta, they negotiated spheres of influence, but tensions grew. Stalin demanded a second front for years, suspecting that the USA and Britain were delaying to weaken the USSR. In 1942, he even wrote to Roosevelt, "Your supplies are good, but where are your troops?" Americans, in turn, felt the USSR didn't appreciate their aid enough. After the war, disagreement spilled over. The USA wanted a democratic Poland, the USSR wanted its sphere of influence. By 1945, Roosevelt complained that Stalin was breaking promises. But during the war, they kept these issues under wraps for the sake of victory. The role of the USA in World War II was immense. Billions in aid, strategic victories, and even joint projects with the USSR. The relationship between the two countries was complex, full of mistrust, but at the crucial moment, they managed to unite. This alliance reminds us that even different worlds can find common ground for a greater goal.